Hello and welcome. You're with us here in Business Today. I'm Abhavakaya. Here are the day's top stories. It's a world exclusive. Nothing CEO and OnePlus co-founder Carl Pei, in conversation with Business Today TV, says India is the most important strategic market for handset manufacturing. Nothing reveals he was an Apple fanboy, but they have become lazy of late. Popular people carriers like the Innova, Maruti, Ertiga and Kia Carens could get more expensive. GST Council may take up proposal to treat these vehicles like SUVs. If passed, it would mean an additional 22% cess. BTTV, in an exclusive conversation with Vivek Johri, chairman of the CB of Indirect Taxes and Customs, tells us that conditions are conducive to bringing petroleum products and alcohol under GST. Also says we'll consider various steps to rationalize rates. D Street ignores weak global cues in its march to new highs. Sensex and Nifty scaled record highs in trade before withdrawing in the last half hour. Sustained foreign capital inflows keep sentiment bullish. Finance Ministry releases economic review for 22-23, says consumption and investment in the last quarter crossed pre-pandemic levels, adds that this year's economic growth is only restricted by external factors. Huge response to Threads, the new Meta challenge to Twitter. Mark Zuckerberg boasts of 10 million sign-ups in just 7 hours. The new platform allows users to post up to 500 characters. Popular car models like the Toyota Innova, Maruti Ertiga, Echo and Kia Carens could get costlier if a new proposal is accepted by the GST Council. According to reports, the GST Council is set to discuss an additional cess of 22% on all MPVs and crossover models. The cess is currently imposed only on SUVs. The proposed move will impose cess on all UVs with a length of more than 4 meters, engine capacity of more than 1500 cc and ground clearance of over 170 millimeters. The cess was first imposed on SUVs at a council meeting held in September 2017. The 22% cess on 28% GST would mean an added cost of 6.2% on the ex-factory price. For more on this, let's go across to Karishma Sudani. Karishma, what are the chances of this proposal being passed, and that too next week?
Well, right, Abha, this has been under deliberation for quite some time. In fact, the council is likely to clarify on the definition of MUVs and XUVs, which is the multi-utility vehicle and the crossover utility vehicle. And the idea has been, of course, to bring them at par with the SUVs, that is the sports utility vehicle. Now, there has been a 22% cess recommendation that will be taken up for deliberation in the upcoming GST Council meeting on 11th of July. And this is going to be over and above the 28% GST tax that is already imposed on these utility vehicles. It was also during the 23rd GST Council meeting that government had decided to impose this cess on SUVs, and now they want to take a further clarification for which they set certain parameters which justify why a utility vehicle should be considered under the cess amplification.
Sure. Karishma, what's the status of GST on online gaming? Is the GST Council expected to take a decision on this?
Yes, top sources are telling us that online gaming is on the agenda, and yet another subject that, as per my top officials, will need clarity and will be taken up. While the issue is going to be tabled, we are not yet sure if there's going to be an outcome or decision on it, because it's going to be in the hands of states. As we know, the GOM on online gaming had submitted in last December a report that talks of a 28% tax, but what is yet to be decided is on the medium of valuation. Is it going to be on the net income, or is it going to be on the gross gaming revenue, which is the GGR, is something that the states will have to decide. And in case that there is strong rebuttal from certain states, then the government may not go ahead with it.
All right, Karishma, thanks so much for joining us with that. The Federation of Auto Dealers Association, or FADA, meanwhile, has sought to rationalize GST on all vehicles. In a conversation with BTTV's Chetan Bhutani, FADA's Manish Raj Singhania said the vehicles were just picking up after 3 years. According to data released by the body, registration of passenger vehicles, three-wheelers and tractors in June was the highest ever recorded for the month.
There are reports that in the upcoming GST Council meeting, the Council is likely to define MUVs and SUVs for a levy of 22% cess over and above the 28% GST rate. So what is your reaction on that?
No, we are already, apart from GST, in any SUV or MUV, we are taxed between 48 to 49%. So
right.
That is there. I don't think there is any reduction would be there on that front. We have been asking for GST reduction only on two-wheelers, which command GST of present GST of 28%, which we are asking that it should be reduced to 18%, because that's the only segment which has not yet revived from the pre-COVID level, which is still underperforming compared to pre-COVID level.
When it comes to rural India or the Bharat, the real Bharat, that really doesn't venture into premium motorcycles. They venture into the entry-level motorcycles. But that is also not showing good growth. So why is it that the rural Bharat is not buying a two-wheeler? Because small states usually they have two-wheelers. So is there a transition towards EVs, towards scooties, or motorcycles is just not the plan to buy motorcycles is on hold?
So EV, there is no transition. In fact, last month the FAME subsidies were rolled out, and we could see almost price increment in EV two-wheeler space by almost 15 to 20%. And there was a drop of retail in EV space by almost 56%. So that's a huge drop, and I don't think there's no kind of transition to EV vehicle from ICE vehicle in the rural market. So I think what exactly is the cause is the financial distress.
Well, Maruti is not letting up in its quest to be the country's largest SUV maker. Having launched 4 SUVs and MPVs in the past few months, India's largest automaker is focusing on a market which it had largely stayed away from in the past. In a conversation with BTTV's Chetan Bhutani, Maruti Suzuki's MD and CEO Hisashi Takeuchi, however, made it clear that the company has no intention of returning to diesel.
Already Maruti Suzuki has now taken a huge leap when it comes to manufacturing premium products, and I'm joined by the Managing Director of Maruti Suzuki. Thank you, San, for joining us. Invicto is here. Maruti has taken a huge leap when it comes to premiumization of luxury vehicles. Nexa channel is now officially has one of the best vehicles that Maruti has ever manufactured. First question to you about the pricing, sir. Do you feel that it could have been priced a little bit lesser in the range of 20 to 21 lakh so that the consumers could have been more attractive vis-a-vis a 25 lakh odd starting car, sir?
Well, this is really the top line of Nexa, and I believe with this price we have already got more than 6,000 bookings. So with this price, I'm sure that the booking will further increase, and I think as a top line, this is appropriate level of the price. And on top of that, I think the Indian market is evolving, and the Indian consumers' purchasing power also increasing, year by year. So I think I believe that the Indian market has the power to absorb this kind of products, and it will even expand the market size of this type of vehicle.
San, also you mentioned about capturing market share. You are already at 20% from an 8% market share to 20%. What is the target? What do you plan to end your year with? And will there be sustained launches? Because we have 3-4 launches in the past 3-4 months itself. So do we have more launches lined up to gather that market share further?
The future products, we also, of course, we are planning to introduce even further for Indian market, because the SUV market is expanding so rapidly, and in order to get a good chunk of the SUV market, we also need the decent model lineup. So we have a plan, but we cannot explain the details of our plan today.
Also, sir, I'd like to ask you about the engine one, sir. Such engines are usually very capable and very performing when they come into diesel. So is there a plan for venturing into diesel again, sir, or smart electric hybrid would be the future for Maruti Suzuki?
of course, our strategy is a multi-pathway. So we will, introduce multiple technologies for our power trains, including this, hybrid products. But as far as the diesel, we have no plan to introduce diesel into Indian market because of the several reasons, especially the, emission regulation for the future, which is only getting tougher and tougher, especially for the diesel engine.
Right. Also, sir, MPV segment is very fast performing. How much more market share are you planning to gather with the year end, sir? You want to beat that #1 position again as far as the SUV position goes?
In the SUV market, as we explained, that we are targeting to become #1 position in the SUV market. And the overall target, we would like to go back to 50%, but this is a long term. So we cannot, go back to 50%, right away. So we will gradually improve our market share. And also this year, we'd like to increase at some, level. But we don't disclose that, quite clearly. But we definitely would like to increase the market share.
Could alcohol and petroleum products be under the ambit of GST soon? In an exclusive conversation with BTTV Managing Editor Siddharth Rabi, the chairman of the CBIC, Vivek Johri, expressed confidence that it was easier now to forge a consensus between states on this because of an overall rise in GST revenues. He also talked about the planned rationalization in GST rates. Here's an excerpt.
Problem that the entire department has actually been dealing with: fake invoices, input fake claims. How serious is this problem? Because some of these numbers seem to be quite big, and where do we stand on that front to clamp down on wrong practices?
So yes, it has been a concern, that we've had a very large number of cases where bogus firms have been created, either by stealing the identity of other people unwittingly, without their knowing it, or sometimes even with their consent. And these firms are then used to seed bogus input tax credit, which is then circulated in the system. Obviously, this has a revenue implication, because if this fake ITC is used for payment of taxes, to that extent, either the center or the states or both are not collecting, the taxes that ought to have come to them in the normal course. So both the center and the states have been quite active in dealing with this problem. For our part, I can say that CBIC had launched a drive way back in August 20, to deal with fake ITC. And so far, we have come across cases involving bogus ITC claims of roughly about 63,000 crore. So that's a very large number. And we have, in the course of this drive, we have unearthed about 24,000 fake GSTins.
That have sort of built up over the past several quarters, that there will be some sort of changes as far as the tax slabs are concerned, some rationalization. Could you once again sort of clarify what is the timeline and on that? I know it's a matter for the GST Council, but broadly, anything that you could tell our viewers on that front?
So, the group of ministers which was set up under the convenership of the Honorable Chief Minister of Karnataka at that time, Shri Bommai, was tasked with three things, if you recall. And one of them had to do with the rationalization of the rate structure. The other two terms of reference of that group were about review of exemptions and removal of inverted duty structure. So if you recall, the GOM had given a very detailed report, although an interim one, on the last two aspects that I mentioned. So whether it was removal of exemptions or it was removal of inverted duty structure, the GOM has already pronounced its verdict, and it's made recommendations to rectify a very large number of inversions as well as removal of exemptions. Many of those decisions have already been implemented.
Big ticket items that are still not part of what is called a one tax. Why is that so? And in the 7th year, at the beginning of the 7th year, should we be hopeful that a time will come when all the items that are currently excluded would also get brought under the GST?
You see, the major sector which is out of GST for the time being, and it has been so ever since its inception, is petroleum. And the 5 petroleum products, namely diesel, petrol, natural gas, and a few others which are mentioned in the Constitution, are the only ones that are outside the GST net. The second item, of course, is alcohol. And as you're aware, there was some reluctance to include these within the GST ambit right from the word go, because of the huge revenue dependence on these commodities by the states as well as by the center. So now that the revenue position from GST is becoming more comfortable, I see that over a period of time it would be easier to forge a consensus among the states to incorporate these items within the GST ambit as well.
It's a young mobile brand which has challenged some of the best in the business. Now in this era of global slowdown, nothing is placing its bets on India. Business Today TV's tech editor Ayush Alwadi caught up with 33-year-old Carl Pei, the Chinese-Swedish entrepreneur who co-founded OnePlus 10 years ago and left it 3 years ago to satisfy his entrepreneurial streak with nothing. Here's an excerpt from the conversation on India, Apple and innovation. You can of course watch the full interview on Tech Today this weekend.
It's interesting, you mentioned 2 startups which are doing well here in India, and you seem very glued into the India story. And there's a big India element when it comes to the Nothing Phone 2 as well, with the manufacturing happening in the southern parts of India. What are your views on India and how have they evolved, Carl? Because you've been visiting for a while with other brands as well. You built a community for another brand. Now you're building it over here in India. One, in terms of the importance of building a community in a country like India, where people are very price conscious, very discerning. And 2, also, how has the Indian consumer really evolved over the past decade, perhaps?
I think first it was more about just tapping into this market and selling products, and then came the local manufacturing part. And I think the next stage will be, how can we make this a hub for the entire world for exporting products? I think that's the transition that our entire industry is going through in India. As for the consumers, I think they've always been very demanding. It's like some of the most vocal consumers online on social media, and I don't think that's changed.
Yeah.
But the competition is a lot higher. So when we launched OnePlus before, we had good value for money, good spec, good price.
Yeah.
It was quite unique back then. But today there's many options if that's all you're looking for. So with Nothing, we're trying to do something a little bit different, trying to have a more clear idea of where we want to take the industry and be more unique in our approach to our products and our software. I think overall I think the Indian market will be really important because we're seeing right now the macroeconomics are not good globally.
Globally.
Yeah, but still in India we don't feel a recession. The economy is still growing, and there's a lot of youth population, very tech savvy. So we see it as one of our most important strategic markets. We see Apple also coming in quite aggressively. So we can't be too slow. We got to hurry up our plans here as well. So we have a chance of taking some market share before Apple gets too dominant.
When you're talking about the global map, and then India, like you said, is a key market for you. With the Nothing Phone 1, we obviously had a product made for India. The gap that was left by a lot of legacy brands perhaps could have been filled by the Nothing Phone 1. Now the Phone 2, it's a different approach. It's a little more premium, and the US market opens up as well. 750,000 devices sold for the Nothing Phone 1, something like that, maybe a little more, if you can correct me if I'm wrong. With the US market opening up with Phone 2, with you just globe-trotting and figuring out how exactly you're going to strategize this, how do you see sales for the Nothing Phone 2? I mean, I don't want to really prod you on for numbers, but what is your target like when you go back home and you head to bed?
I think, so if you look at the economy again, the economy is not very good. So in this environment, it's better to optimize for the bottom line than the top line. So we're still going to grow on the top line, but the profitability becomes a lot more important because if you look at all the tech stocks, they've taken a beating in this environment. So if we can sell similar amount of phone 2 to the phone 1, but given that the price has increased, it's a much more premium product, we're going to be happy with that. But it all depends on, when people get the product into their hands, whether they like the product or not. And if they love the product, even if the phone 2 doesn't do tens of millions, I think it sets our brand up really well for the next one and the next one and the next one.
Right.
Bulls were back in action on the Last Street after a day's hiatus as benchmark indices settled with big gains during the weekly expiry of derivative contracts. Headline peers kept global weakness aside and continued to scale new highs as the Nifty 50 index topped 19,500 during the day, thanks to buying in select heavyweight stocks. BSE's barometer Sensex gained 340 points today, and NSE Nifty added 99 points. 19,497 is where we closed. The BSE market cap reached a new high of 301 lakh crore rupees this morning. Top Nifty gainers M&M, Apollo Hospitals, Power Grid, Tata Motors and Reliance Industries. Top laggards were Eicher Motors, HDFC Life, Maruti, HCL Tech and Bajaj Finance. Shares of Eicher Motors have fallen more than 10% in just 3 trading days. Analysts are blaming the fall on 2 recent big launches, that of the Harley-Davidson X440 in tie-up with Hero MotoCorp and the Triumph 400X, which has been developed with Bajaj Auto. Both bikes are priced in the 2.2 lakh to 2.7 lakh rupee bracket, a segment which was largely serviced by Royal Enfield and Eicher brand. The aggressive pricing of the new bikes could threaten Enfield's monopoly in the above 250cc segment. The day the Harley X440 was launched, Eicher fell 6.3%, and the next day the Triumph 400X was launched and Eicher fell 2.7%. Today the stock was under pressure again, bringing the total fall in 3 days to 11.1%. That's all we could pack in on the show tonight. Thanks so much for watching.